Welcome to another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch, being joined by Devin, Hasson, and David Wolman. It is 11:30 on a Monday, gentlemen, and we are here. We have week 11 of high school football season is upon us, and you know what that means, man. It is time to sift through some tiebreakers. Everybody's favorite ice cream headache when it comes to high school football. So with it being the last week of the regular season for our 5A and 6A high schools, that means there's plenty at stake this week, whether it's district championships, playoff berths, and we've in years past, we've devoted this last episode of the regular season to trying to just kind of set the stage and try to sort through as much of the potential chaos as we can because, sure enough, there's plenty of chance at just that later on this week. So we're going to kind of go district by district and try to, we don't want to linger too long because some of these districts can be a little bit more complex than others, but just try to do the best we can to just kind of give you all an idea as far as what is at stake, as far as who needs what to happen to accomplish whatever on later on this week. So let's just get ready for some good old tiebreaker talk. First off, how much what was this like for you guys? Because obviously with the pandemic and whatnot, and the districts kind of being left up to their own devices to kind of come up with their own procedures. Did it feel a little bit different than years past, having to go through and try to sort out the this potential chaos?
Oh, it's completely different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the no contest and the forfeits, and the fact that every district was given the freedom to decide their own way of doing things, but point differentials in 3- and 4-way ties are hard enough, but when you start factoring in the no contest and how every district tries to even the slate out at the end, it's just been mind-numbing at times trying to figure out.
Well, we'll get to the mind-numbing part in a bit. Let's quickly start with the districts that have everything wrapped up heading into this week. As far as just the teams that have qualified for the playoffs now, there might be an instance here or there where seeding is still up for grabs. But as far as the districts that have already determined their 4 playoff teams in our coverage area, at least, you look at a district like 7-5A Division II. Actually, both of our 7-5As are pretty nice and ironed out. In 7-5A Division II, we know the 4 playoff teams. Lovejoy was able to wrap up the district championship. They're going to be the 1 seed. Then you have Frisco in second place at 4-1. Frisco, after that loss to Lovejoy, had its last 2 games COVIDed, so they're done until the start of the postseason. And then you have Denison and Frisco Liberty that we're tied for 3rd place right now at 5-2. Denison just beat Liberty last week though, so they have the head-to-head. And I guess depending on what happens with their games later on this week, there could be a flip-flop of those 2 teams. But those are going to be your 4 playoff teams in 7-5A Division II. In 7-5A Division I, it's kind of the same. You have one team that is locked up a district title at the top with Highland Park being the 1 seed. You have a tie for 2nd place between Longview and Sherman at 3-1, and then McKinney North in 4th place. They're at 3-3. They'll get into the playoffs. Now there is obviously a scenario where McKinney North is done. They've already wrapped up the regular season, and even though there's still a half game up on Tyler could theoretically win. They could pull an upset on Friday, but that would only tie them with McKinney North, and North already beat Tyler head-to-head. So North, despite the 3-3 record, they are in the playoffs as well. Again, there is a scenario where, depending on how that 2 seed shakes out between Longview and Sherman, because they're both 3-1 and they had their game against each other canceled due to COVID. So, but as far as teams relative to our local coverage area, though, McKinney North in the playoffs in 7-5A Division I. Poteet's already got it locked up in 6-5A Division II, but I guess there's still a little bit of as far as what seed they're going to be, though, that's still kind of up for debate.
Yeah, South Oak Cliff wrapped up this district last week by beating Kimball. They're going to be the top seed. Poteet and Kimball go into this week head-to-head on Friday night, both 6-1. They're both already clinched. But it's it's a big game because you kind of look ahead, and if you're the 3rd seed, you get either Aledo or Mansfield Timberview in the first round, and you'd rather have somebody else.
Put off that one as long as possible.
Yeah. So, So, yeah, but those three teams have separated themselves. I think if there was a middle tier, Hillcrest is right there. They play Spruce with basically the winner of that game getting in as well. But the big one is Friday night at Sprague with Poteet and Kimball play.
And then over in 6A, we still have there's still a lot to be decided there. But it does appear that District 9 6A, the Garland ISD Wylie district, which has been the center of plenty of attention in recent weeks, it does seem like by hook or crook they have 4 playoff teams too.
If you wanted to pick a district to sum up what is the COVID madness of this season, it's 9-6A.
They're the mascot.
They thought a little outside the box going in. We talked about that early on with their pods. They decided to do 2 pods, 2 zones in case the full district slate couldn't get played. That sure enough came to fruition. So essentially their playoff games were supposed to be now almost 3 weeks ago. Because they played 3 of their teams in their pod, and then they seeded them. They played across the way. So Saxe and Wylie punched their tickets back on November 13th. Yes. They already know they're going to the playoffs. The other 2 got postponed because of COVID. It was supposed to be played this past weekend. Naaman Forest punched their ticket on Friday. Lakeview and Garland were supposed to play on Saturday. And then I get an email late Friday night saying, oh, by the way, that game is canceled because we had another positive test. So Lakeview and Garland gets shelved. Well, the district rules state that the higher seed, if that game is not able to get played, gets in, which was Lakeview as the 2nd seed. However, because their quarantine date didn't start till later, not only could they not get that game in, Lakeview would also have to miss the by-district round of the playoffs. It would be a forfeit. So Garland ends up getting that 4th playoff spot.
What a mess.
So if you look at the standings as they stand, you have Naaman at 5-1, and they're in. In second place, you have a 1-loss Lakeview team at 3-1. The only other team with a winning record is Rowlett, 3-2. So 2 of the 3 teams with winning records are not going to be in the playoffs. You have Saxe and Wylie tied for 4th. They're both in. And then Garland, tied for 6th place with South Garland, is headed to the playoffs. So, it's just in a nutshell of all the bad COVID madness and what this has done. 9-6A is a perfect example. But bottom line is, Their field is set unless something really strange happens and there's another COVID case that affects one of the playoff teams, and then they go to the alternate system where Rowlett's now the first alternate because Lakeview can't play the first round either. So, we could get to a point where North Garland, who hasn't won a game all season, if there's enough alternates, could be in the playoffs.
Oh, wow. What a district, man.
Yeah.
What a district. All right, let's try to, level out a little bit and just all right, so let's talk about the districts, though, that do have, things that are still at stake heading into this week. And we can talk about, the lone 5A district that we still have hanging out there that still has plenty up for grabs. That being 5A Division I. So a quick update on where things are at heading into the final week. You have Denton Ryan in first place. They are 6-0. Lone Star is in second place at 5-0. Those 2 teams will play on Friday to determine the district champion. Then you have Reedy in third place at 4-2. A tie for 4th place between Independence and the Colony. They are both 3-2. Wakeland is in 6th place at 4-4, although I believe, did you say earlier, Devin, that there's no scenario where Wakeland can get in?
Yeah, that's.
Okay. Then to round things out, you have Centennial 2-5. Centennial, which pulled a heck of an upset over Reedy to just muddy things up even further. Heritage is in 8th place at 1-6, and then Denton High at 0-7 in 9th place. So yes, there's 3 games that are of relevance towards the playoff picture this week. As we mentioned, Lone Star Ryan, the big one on Friday. That one will determine the top seed from this district. And then you have Reedy and the Colony. They play head-to-head. And then you have Independence and Heritage. So, Devin and David, whoever wants to kind of take the reins, but from what you guys have been able to discern, how do we know it's a stake between Ryan and Lone Star. That's the easy part. It's more so those other 2 playoff seeds. So how do we get to the bottom of this later on this week?
Interesting formula. But from what I understand is that if Independence wins, it seems like they're in the playoffs.
Okay.
And so they would either grab the 3rd or 4th seed, more likely the 4th seed, from what I understand. But that's a little bit more easier scenario than the Colony and Reedy.
Yes.
And those 2 teams play Friday night at the Colony. And who would have thought, like the Colony just coming off this little COVID break, they're still in the playoff mix.
Yeah.
thankfully, thanks to that Centennial win over Reedy. But from what I understand, on the game on Friday, is that if Reedy wins, they're going to be the third seed in the playoffs. But if the Colony can win by at least 17 points,
oh boy,
yeah, here's where it comes in. Here's where it gets a little bit interesting. So if they, that's why I got a text message about this last night. If the Colony wins by 17 points, I was understanding that this goes down to a coin flip.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I was told by a coach. So if that happens, then if Colony wins the flip, then they'll be the third seed in the playoffs.
So just to earn that opportunity to have a coin flip decide their fate, they have to beat Reedy by 17 points.
Yes.
That is quite the rabbit hole to travel down. Devin, how does that check out with kind of what you've been able to discern on how this district is looking right now?
Yeah, I mean it could be easy or it could be difficult, and so of course it's going to be difficult. It's like I say, going over the things. The most interesting scenario would be if Independence was upset and Reedy beat the Colony, leaving Independence and the Colony tied because their common opponents are the same. They've actually played. They have the same record. They'd be 3-3 against common opponents. Going into this week, their point differential is exactly the same. They didn't play one another. They both didn't play Lone Star. So it would go down to you see these tiebreaker scenarios. It's like A, B, C, D, E. You're getting down to like E, F, G to determine if it's who gets in between them. So. It could be. I don't think Independence is going to lose this week, and so I think Reedy. I think they'll bounce back against, after I think they were stunned a little bit last week. They'll come back refocused. Stranger things have happened this year, obviously, but it could work its way out to be kind of a simple situation. But again, that's what this time of year is about. That's why they have like 8,000 different ways to settle tiebreakers.
Over in Class 6A, we can look now for the rest of the way at our 6A districts that are still up for grabs. Over in 5-6A, I'll talk a little 5-6A for a bit. So we have Allen, who's in first place. They're 5-0. Geyer's in second place at 5-1. So those two are in for sure. I believe McKinney Boyd is in as well, even though McKinney Boyd is in third place at 3-2. And there is a scenario where they could lose Friday to Prosper and be in a three-way tie with Braswell if some other chaotic stuff happens elsewhere. I was not able to find a scenario where Boyd gets left out. So again, even though you could wind up in a tie, with the other two teams, it does feel like, at least from what I've been able to discern, that Boyd comes out on top in every possible tiebreaker. So if there's a coach out there with Boyd within the district that has heard or seen otherwise, then let me know. But I've not been able to uncover a scenario yet where Boyd gets left out. So I'm putting Boyd in with those other two. So that would then leave, but obviously that doesn't diminish the stakes though for this week, because you still have two massive games relative to the that fourth seed, which will be decided by either Prosper or Denton Braswell. They are both tied for fourth place right now at 2-3. McKinney's in sixth place at 1-4. Little Elm is at 0-5 in seventh place. McKinney and Little Elm are both eliminated. It's wild because if the playoffs started today, Prosper wouldn't make it. Prosper, who has spent the majority of the season state-ranked among the state's top 20, 25 teams, a team that was basically, they lost to Denton Geyer on the last play of the game. This past Friday, they put the scare of scares into Allen. They put up the stiffest test to Allen's, now it's, 82 consecutive regular season wins, the stiffest test of any team across those 82 ball games, and they lost on basically a go-ahead touchdown with 6 seconds left. So that team would not be in the playoffs if the postseason started today, because they have that head-to-head loss to Braswell hovering over like an albatross. So basically, Prosper has to find a way to shake themselves from Braswell in order to qualify for the playoffs, and they've basically now put themselves in a position where they have to win Friday against McKinney Boyd. So the two games of significance in this district, you have Prosper hosting Boyd on Friday, and then the night before, you'll already learn if there's going to be any opportunity for chaos, because you have Braswell hosting Allen. That one, again, Allen's going to be the decided favorite in that's a game I'm going to be there for that game, and it's at least on my radar, just given what some teams have done as far as kind of spreading the ball around through the air on this Allen team. Little Elm, throwing for almost 500 yards on them. Prosper, Jackson Berry, he completed over 75% of his passes against him in that game last Friday, and Braswell has what's at least on paper the best receiving core that Allen will have seen this season. So that game has at least got my attention. Again, but so you have a scenario though where even if Braswell loses, Prosper still has to win Friday because, like I said, Prosper and Braswell are tied. Braswell has the head-to-head, so if Braswell and Prosper lose, Braswell still gets the edge via head-to-head tiebreaker. So Prosper all of a sudden now is in must-win territory Friday against McKinney Boyd. Again, there is, I guess, the chance for potential chaos if you do get some crazy upsets. If Braswell if Braswell decides to shock the world this week and defeat Allen, you have a scenario there where you could get a three-way tie for third place if Prosper then is able to defeat McKinney Boyd. That would tie all three of those teams at 3-3, and then that's where you go down this this point differential rabbit hole, and where it basically would create a scenario where, because you have McKinney Boyd, they blew out Braswell. And then you have Braswell, they beat Prosper by 18 points, and there's a 17-point cap on any point differentials for that district. So you have a scenario there when, you'd have, like, if it came down to point differentials between those three schools and their head-to-head matchups, you have Boyd, who'd currently be plus 17, Braswell, who would be 0, and then Prosper, who would be minus 17. So then you would create a scenario where Prosper would have to beat Boyd by 17 points on Friday just to draw even and get everybody's point differential down to 0, and then you would then invoke the third tiebreaker in the district. You mentioned the A, B, and C thing, Devin. Well, this is down now to, I guess, option number C, which would then be your record versus the highest other district teams from highest to lowest finish. So how do they do against Allen? How do they do against Geyer? And then in that case, it would actually be Braswell's loss to McKinney that would be the decider, and that would then advance Boyd and Prosper to the playoffs. So that's a little bit tough to follow. It's certainly a bit of an ice cream headache, but the bottom line for Prosper is you got to win Friday. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what is at stake for the Eagles, who all of a sudden now, a team that was sitting pretty just a few weeks ago, and all of a sudden now their season is very much hanging in the balance, going up against what's been one of the better defenses in the area all season long, Friday against McKinney Boyd. So that is a look at kind of where things are at over in 5-6A. Let's talk a little... I don't know how we discuss 10-6A right now, given the timeliness of this podcast, considering that you have district games that are going to be played later on tonight. So yeah, Devin, to the best of your ability, what do you make of 10-6A right now? As far as so, if I have the standings right in front of me, Rockwall is, and you just correct me if I screw any of these up. Rockwall, first place, 5-0. All right. Second place, Rockwall Heath, 4-1. Third place, Skyline at 3-2. Okay. And then you have
four 1-win teams.
4 1-win teams with Mesquite, Mesquite Horn, North Mesquite, and Tyler Legacy. All either 1-3 or 1-4. What do we? Yeah. I mean, we feel like we've got a long way to go in this district.
And you mentioned games tonight. Mesquite plays Tyler Legacy, and North Mesquite plays Rockwall. Regardless of what happens in those games, all four teams are still going to be alive in the race for the final playoff spot going into Saturday when you have these Saturday afternoon affairs.
Yes. The Monday-Saturday schedule.
Yes, and we could sit there. We've talked about some kind of point differential, scenarios that so-and-so needs to beat. Well, in this situation, as of the time we're doing the podcast, we don't know because all these teams just happen to play each other during this final week.
Yeah.
And so it's not even there's not even a starting point really, with the exception of North Mesquite. In their victory over Horn. The popular thought is that tonight's the big one. Mesquite and Tyler Legacy both control their own destiny. If they win their final two, then they're in. And just kind of based on recent results, Horn's coming off a really nice win over Skyline. That kind of got them back into the playoff picture after an 0-4 start when a lot of people had kind of written them off. So they kept their their hopes alive, but they're still 1-4. They only have one game left, whereas and North Mesquite has 2 games left, but one of those is against Rockwall, which is going to be a really tall task tonight. Whereas again, Mesquite and Legacy play one another tonight, and then Mesquite plays North Mesquite on Saturday. Legacy plays Horn on Saturday, so they control their own destiny. And just kind of looking at what they've been able to do, Mesquite almost beat Rockwall Heath last week. It's 36-33. Tyler Legacy's teams to be riding into form. They played North Mesquite, one of their fellow contenders, and beat them 66-0 last week. So those two teams seem to be getting things together at the right time. And so the winner tonight will have the inside track. Now, obviously, as this season has showed, nothing is guaranteed, and we could get into the tiebreaker situations. Again, like I say, though, regardless who wins tonight, regardless how things shake out tonight, all 4 of those teams will go into Saturday still having a chance. We'll kind of know a little bit more about the point differential situations and who has to do what against who. But yeah, talk about going down to the wire, and there's no guarantee that these games get through. How many times have we had a set plan on Monday that we've had to change Wednesday, Thursday, even Friday night because of a positive test in some program or another? So, hopefully everything will get settled on the field, and the way it should be. But it's like I say, the next 6 days for 10-6 days, there's a lot up in the air, and it should be fun to cover.
Let's close this out then with a look at District 6A and what is on the line there. So David, what we know so far about District 6A is that Marcus. Good.
They don't have to. They're district champs.
Yeah, Marcus is 5-0. They were able to beat Lewisville despite a little bit of a scare. Lewisville had a lead on them for a moment there in the third quarter of that game, and then Marcus pulled away emphatically, and they wound up rolling to a 20-point victory. So Marcus wraps up the district title, the first time in program history that they've won back-to-back district championships. So they're in first place at 5-0. I believe they'll be in the Division II bracket regardless of what happens. So Marcus, though, will be the top seed from this district in Division II. After that, though, it's just a mess. And it's not even worth mentioning losses because, as we've mentioned in the past, this district, basically the first thing that they use to determine the 4 playoff teams is your total number of district wins. So Marcus has 5 district wins. Then you have 4 teams that have 3 district wins: Coppell, Hebron, Lewisville, and Plano West. All have 3 wins right now. Flower Mound is still in the hunt, too. They have 2 wins. And then Plano East, they've been eliminated from playoff contention. Plano, just 1-3 in district play. Plano East, 0-5. So as far as trying to kind of sort out what this all means, because there's 3 games on the schedule this week that are of relevance to the playoff picture, and that is Hebron versus Lewisville, 2 teams that are smack dab in that 3-way tie for second place. So you could construe that as a de facto playoff game of sorts. Then you also have Plano and Plano West. They play. And then Flower Mound and Coppell, 2 teams that are also in the hunt for a playoff spot. So basically the way that the district tiebreakers are set up is, if things happen nice and easy and you have to worry about maybe a 2-way tie of sorts. A 2-way tie, you simply look at head-to-head. If there's a 3 or a 4-way tie, though, you then look at your record versus common opponents. These are the district's separate guidelines in the event that the schedule was impacted by COVID, which obviously it was, with Plano and Hebron having to shut down for 2 weeks. And then if the record versus common opponents is part of any sort of 3 or 4-way tie or is the same, then you go to point differential, which, as we've mentioned, is a 17-point cap, which means if you beat a team by 21 points, only 17 of those count towards your point differential. So, as far as what this this is one of those scenarios that can be a bit of an ice cream headache because you have 4 of those 5 teams control their own destiny. So, Hebron, Coppell, Lewisville, and Plano West, those 4 teams that are tied for second, they all are in win-and-in mode. If they win their game on Friday, they're in. It's where if anything happens, with Lewisville Hebron, the winner of that game is in regardless. So there isn't a scenario that I could find where the winner of that game misses out. But it's if you get some upsets elsewhere within those games. If Flower Mound is able to defeat Coppell, if Plano is able to defeat Plano West, where you open yourself up to a little bit of chaos. So from the Coppell side of things, David, just kind of talk a bit about what the approach is for this week and kind of what as far as where Coppell stands.
Well, the simplest formula is if Coppell beats Flower Mound, they're in the playoffs.
Yes.
But you don't know exactly where you're going to be seated just yet, because they can be anywhere from like a 4 seed of a number 4 seed or maybe like a small school or a big school number 2, where they're having to go against Allen or Geyer in the first round, all the way up to even a big school number 1, because Marcus, they're going to be a small school. They're going to be a small school number 1 regardless. Yeah. So it could be a scenario where, Coppell could, face McKinney Boyd in the first round of the playoffs, where if Lewisville or Plano West loses, then Coppell would be that big school number 1 right there. So that would probably be the best scenario for them right there. Obviously, if they lose, they still have some chances to get in the playoffs, but they would kind of need some help in some different facets. Obviously, you mentioned the point differential right there, which isn't looking, a scenario that Coppell doesn't want to go down to being, -2, you said it was?
It's, with Coppell, actually, I tried to map out every scenario for these games that are at stake in the district, and Coppell actually has probably the most pathways to the playoffs of anybody in the district of those teams that are at least could be part of this logjam. Because even if they lose to Flower Mound, there are instances where if you if you factor in their record against common opponents, because they were able to sweep those 3 Plano schools, that works in their favor in these circumstances. So the only scenario that I was able to uncover where Coppell would miss the playoffs would be, I believe, if Lewisville wins, Plano wins, and if Flower Mound wins. Because, again, like you mentioned, because you get into all sorts of point differential chaos, and because they only beat Plano by 2 points and whatnot, so that would be something that kind of came back to bite them there. But every other, again, that's the lowest probability scenario of them all. So Coppell, though, is in a pretty advantageous spot. Like you mentioned, though, which bracket they're in could change, because if one of the Plano schools make it, obviously, if Plano West makes it, they're going to be Division I. If Lewisville makes it, they're going to be Division I as well, and then that would bump Coppell down to Division II with Marcus. So it's So I mean, again, at the end of the day, they just have to win, and they're in, control their own destiny in what part. And even if they lose, there's a lot of other scenarios that would take place.
All they care about is making the playoffs. They missed the playoffs last year. They want to get back in the playoffs. They don't care who they play. Yeah.
So Coppell, though, is in a pretty advantageous spot, just in general. Like we said, that Hebron Lewisville winner, they the winner of that game gets in as well. The one thing about this, because it was such a pain to have to construe this stuff, is you also have scenarios where these teams control their own destiny, but everybody outside of Flower Mound, for example, like West, Coppell, Hebron, Lewisville, they could all lose their games Friday, and there's still a pathway for them to get in. So that's just what makes this all even more of an ice cream headache to try to sort through. Basically, if you're Plano West, you get into the playoffs with a win or a combination of either a Lewisville loss and a Coppell win. Because, again, Plano West has that win over Lewisville, so any sort of tiebreaker that then puts West and Lewisville together, that winds up working in Plano West's favor. As far as Hebron goes, they would get in with a win or a loss by Plano West because, again, Hebron just beat Plano West last week, so the tiebreakers work in their favor in that circumstance. With Flower Mound, like I said, there is a pathway for them to get in, but they need a little bit of help. They're in, obviously they have to win. They have to beat Coppell. There's no scenario where they lose that game and they get in because, again, they only have 2 district wins. But then they would also need some help from Plano to defeat Plano West. And if that happens, at least from what I've been able to map out, Flower Mound gets in if those 2 upsets take place, if Plano wins and Flower Mound wins. So that's kind of what they're hoping for on Friday. If I had to, if we were betting men, where would we, obviously because there's 2 of these games that have, Coppell is the favorite in that game against Flower Mound, and Plano West is the favorite in that game against Plano. Lewisville Hebron, feel like that one is a little bit closer. But how do you, if you just had to, just put a projection to it, how do you really see this all panning out on Friday?
Well, I'm not usually much of a gambling man, but I feel like Coppell's going to win. I feel like for some reason I feel like they're going to be a big school number 2.
Okay.
Just the way, because Lewisville, the way their offense is built around, I feel like Hebron could put up some points, but not as much as Lewisville can. So I feel like Lewisville will probably get maybe that big school number 1 right there, and then that might leave Coppell to getting big school number 2. But I mean, obviously, as we've seen, anything could happen. I mean, Hebron's that big, mystery in this district right there. We, it just, with different personnel this season, they've shown that they can beat, whoever they want to, and sometimes they might have a little bit tougher time against some other teams. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens on Friday.
Yeah, the quick and easy of all this is if Coppell and Plano West take care of business.
Yeah.
At that point, then that turns Hebron and Lewisville into a de facto playoff game. I'm kind of in line with you. I mean, Flower Mound they've been such a wild card. In their games against Plano East and Plano Senior, they've averaged 63 points. They scored 63 on the dot against both those teams. And I believe if you look elsewhere in their schedule, they've averaged about 16, 17 points. So they're a bit of a wild card at this time of year. But just given that track record, though, you would think that, again, Plano and Plano East, they're the teams that are not in the playoffs for a reason right now. That Coppell certainly fits the profile of a team that Flower Mound has struggled against this season. So I like Coppell in that matchup as well.
Me too.
Rivalry stuff can be weird with these Plano ISD matchups, but still, I mean, I still give Plano West the edge over Plano, but I could see that being a bit of a closer game. And then Hebron and Lewisville. I kind of like the ceiling of Lewisville's offense and just kind of the level that they can get to a bit more. Although Hebron shocked me with that performance against Plano West, just because we've seen teams all season long really struggle with that COVID hiatus and having to take those basically going 3 weeks between games. And then you have Hebron come out and just look as good as it has all season and really kind of taking care of Plano West. So who knows? That's a team that was really shorthanded early on in the year, and this could be, they're starting to finally round into form a bit at the perfect time. But yeah, it's... Man, for our sake, hopefully it is a nice smooth sailing road as far as getting these 4 playoff teams. But it's just been that kind of year. So
it's 2020.
Who knows what's at stake on Friday? So that is a look as far as kind of where things are at heading into the final week of the regular season. We'll be back on Thursday to talk about our game of the week. We got five candidates. Some of the games that have just been mentioned on the podcast up for consideration on the website starlocalmedia.com. Go vote on one of those 5 games. We'll be back to preview that game and some more on Thursday. So until then, folks, take care. We will talk to y'all later.